Welcome to 0 Days, the game where the points don't matter and the hacks get better. Welcome back to the second episode of 0 Days. In this morning's episode, you learned all about hacking. Now, our stars Kirk and Andy are going to teach us how do we stop the hacking from attacking.
Thank you, Jeremy.
It's a good line.
So, my name's Kirk Jackson. I work at Xero. You might remember me from such sessions as 2 hours ago. I forgot the end of my demo. And I'd like to introduce Andy Prow.
So again, you might remember me from 2 hours ago, and just making sure that Kirk's demo did go through, and it does work now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So we had a very good lunch of absolutely nothing while we got Kirk's demo working. But no, it's all good.
Cool.
Obviously lunch was good. Well-fed people.
So as we were saying this morning, last year we had a bunch of very common attacks that people like Andy see all the time. Such as...
And just out of interest, who was actually here last year to see those? Yeah, good. Okay. There's quite a few who weren't though, so we might, if we get time at the end, we might just recap on some of last year's.
Yep, so the video is still up on the TechEd Live site, and I think otherwise we can post them on our blog, on my blog. So
there were 2 downloads. I did one.
Cool. So I was the second one, and I sent it to my mum, but she didn't want to watch it.
Oh.
So so there was 4 basic things we covered last year that are really common, and we didn't want to talk about them too much this year. SQL injection, malicious file execution, cross-site scripting, and cross-domain request forgery. But this year we saw some new stuff.
Oh, we did. So what were we doing this year? So we had a look at enumerating some of the usernames. We leaked the content out to Facebook. The human factor, so big one that we see time and time again. And so I take the mickey out of marketing, but again, it's this whole who is running your site, where are they putting the information about you? We had some embedded and hidden content. It was really hidden, wasn't it?
It was very hidden, so hidden. Yep. We had some use of new technologies like Silverlight that makes us developers really happy. And we did a little bit of phishing. I think Team 2 did some phishing.
We certainly did, but of social engineering and tab netting. So very much rolled into one. So we'll run through some of those in a moment.
Cool. So this session's kind of the explanation session. Hopefully we'll go through some of the stuff in a bit more depth, and then give you some words that you can Google if you want to go deeper.
Or a couple of nuggets that you can load up too.
Our first game tonight is called My Kid Could Draw That. We go out to small town schools, we ask kids to draw us pictures, and then our contestants figure out just what it is that they have drawn. The first kid we've got is Kalani. Kalani, what have you got for us?
Hello, my name is Kalani and I go to Rewa School, and this is my picture.
Oh, that was sick.
So what's he drawn?
Ooh, that's his picture. Obviously, you with large hands.
Yep, that looks like me. Those are my shoes. There's some kind of prison structure with a circle on it.
Definitely 2 prison doors.
There.
Double max prison.
Double max prison. There's a box that he's floating above, so it must be some kind of spiritual kind of thing there.
Definitely, or he could be a thief. Maybe he's stolen your MacBook Air and went to a double max prison. Except it was you in gloves. You stole this MacBook. That's what your son's saying.
That's what I reckon it is.
That's bad.
So is that what it was really about? No. I asked my son to draw a picture of a website downloading content from 2 different sites. So that's why there's a MacBook Air with a Firefox in it. That's our Silverlight example. So with technologies such as Silverlight, Flash, or even actually embedding images and pages, you can have one website downloading content from more than one server.
And what's quite fascinating, so we ran through that Burp proxy tool. We'll fire it up again in a mo. So if you guys downloaded, say, Paros, it's a proxy tool you can get from the OWASP website. And out of interest, OWASP. Who here knows what OWASP stands for? We got a couple of people. OWASP, Open Web Application Security Project. If you're doing .NET development, online stuff, you should be aware of the OWASP.org. It's a great resource for hacking techniques and defenses. Anyway, great tool. Paros you can download. We've got Burp. And what they'll do is, again, if you just load up a standard website these days and you have a look at where it's getting content from, Google Analytics, news feeds.
We're playing a game with my kids could draw that. Oh, sure. You're just talking. Blah, blah,
blah, blah, blah. Anyway, great stuff from where content comes from.
Our next drawing is from a girl called Callista. Callista, what is your drawing all about?
Hello, my name is Costa, and I go to the Riverview School, and this is my picture!
Ooh.
Thanks, Callista. What a wonderful drawing. Now over to you, contestants. What's it all about?
That's a tough one, Jeremy.
That is a tricky one.
Especially with the contrast. It looks like a game of Dance Dance Revolution with a slightly drunken, tilting, thin person.
Was this you playing Twister at your party?
Yes. Where are the clothes?
And where's all your mates?
And there's some kind of arrow going out that way, and at the start of the arrow it says, Leo, I like balls.
Yeah.
That's our guess, Jeremy. It's about a man playing Twister and football at the same time.
And he likes balls.
No, actually what this is about, and I'm sure you'll love my kids instead of Visio approach, is as the arrow going out to the side is the request going out to a server. And every request that you make to the server, your cookies go with it. So as the stick man uses his multicolored MacBook computer and browses around the website, every single request to that server transfers the cookie and the man's credentials.
It does.
It's kind of hard to tell if it's a man or not.
It is genius.
It is, yes. It's gender neutral. Okay, so that's
very well
also
described.
similar to our Silverlight problem in that when you browse a web page, HTML page, it's going through the browser networking stack. It's collecting cookies that come from the server and passing them back to the website on every request. Technologies that are built on top of the browser, such as Silverlight, Flash, Applets, SVG, I can't think of any more. HTML5, wow, isn't that snazzy? They all go through the same networking stack, and they will share the same cookies back to the server if they're running inside your browser. So,
and that's exactly what that shows me. That's excellent.
it's our two diagrams. So, we'll refer to those as we go through and talk about our year's attacks, I'm sure. So, just from memory, the first attack was enumerating usernames. Oh man, out of sequence. Should we skip to enumerating usernames, or should we go back to sequence? When we look at the attacks, a useful way to think about them is to think about them in a threat modeling fashion. So when you're threat modeling, there's some Microsoft books on threat modeling that are actually well regarded in the industry, even outside Microsoft technologies. So you can have a look at those. You start off with a kind of a model of what your application and environment is. And I just copied and pasted this from an Azure document because it was a nice picture. But it's pretty much the same as every web application. You have a web server sitting there, behind the web server is a database, and in front of the web server is a web browser. And then with threat modeling, you look first at the threats that are coming in.
It's good. We can actually see that. Can you guys all see that on the screen? Is that viewable?
Cool. One person
Beautiful.
can see it. Cool.
Beautiful.
If you could just whisper backwards what it says, that would be cool. Cool. So some of the threats for a typical web application. So between the client browser and the firewall in front of the server, you might see man-in-the-middle attacks, like someone is sitting on a router or running a proxy.
We'll be having one of them in just a second, actually.
Credential theft, session hijacking, so the kind of stuff that goes on between the wire and the server. And then on the server, you have to worry about granting unauthorized access to resources or someone cracking your encryption. I don't know how to do that. Manipulation of query strings and other things. And then down at the database level, you have to worry about tampered data or disclosure of data by rogue sysadmins, employees, or marketing staff. So that's the threats that are against our environment. The next thing we look at is the vulnerabilities. So what things are slightly suspicious or dubious about our application?
So what are we looking at here? I guess running through from end to end, what have we seen so far? Secrets in code. Well, it wasn't exactly a secret that Kirk had before, but some hidden URLs that we had on the intranet before. Weak passwords or even shared passwords, so we've covered off that one. I guess when we look at things like at the back end, unauthenticated REST, a typical one that we'll often see in a lot of web services, so I won't go into this in too much detail right now, but you need to be very careful of what authentication information you are storing in your sessions versus what is being passed through. When we saw Arnie Blunt before, going through our Facebook, where we had some full URLs being stored in our like-its. So we have seen URLs in a REST state where you don't need anything, obviously, to get in. So that's the kind of issues you don't want to see there.
Cool. So things to watch out there for there are like admin sections of your site that use Ajax or something against a common part of your site that you might have forgotten to protect against unauthenticated use or unauthorized use. Cool. And then the last step is really what countermeasures can we put in place to protect us from these threats and to mitigate the vulnerabilities, or the other way around, mitigate, protect. Whichever way around those words work, consult a dictionary. So countermeasures, when you implement countermeasures, it's a trade-off. So some of the threats might be high risk and easy to fix. Some of the threats might be low risk and really hard to fix, like your server's on the internet. That's a risk. But it's very hard to fix that if your server is serving your website. So you need to trade off the countermeasures against each other.
Well, yeah, some of the countermeasures we'll go through in a minute. Some of them do degrade usability. It is always a balance. So when we say we're battling marketing because marketing wants Flex, Silverlight, they want good analytics on the page, they want the rich functionality, that's because they want it for a reason, but it does highlight, or it does create some vulnerability as well. Always a big trade-off. So some of the examples we'll show later on, we're going to take more of the security stance, because that's what we're here for.
Yeah, and from your point of view, you're probably the same person in the conversation as well, so you should probably take a hard left with your right. Which is more secure, Rodney Hyde or AOT legalised marijuana? Because Heather Roy's documents weren't that secure.
They were not, were they?
And you can't trust a stone person to look after your weed.
Oh yeah.
So you should probably take a centrist approach against the outlying swinging opinions of your marketing team and then let them try and pull you out to the fringes.
I think that's one of these nuggets that definitely need to be tweaked.
If you tweak that, you could win a keyboard.
I think so.
Or you could win
$25,000. No. Well, something worth that.
It's not
real money.
redeemable for
No.
cash.
No.
Cool.
It pays with nothing.
Okay, so going through the attacks. So the first one that I was the first one to show it, and
Yes, you were.
team, was enumerating users. So on the sign-up screen of bargains.com, you were able to type in a username and see if that person was a valid user.
Yep, absolutely. So what we're going to do, we're just going to flick over to the other machine for the demo. With our man over there with the switch. So what we're going to do, so we're just going to have a look at enumerating some other usernames. Oh, look at that.
Thanks.
Got 1, 2, yay! Excellent. So what are we going to do on here? So we are jumping back to our Facebook quick search. If you remember, we had Arnie Blunt up here. What's Arnie Blunt got? So look, one of the things he had up here is the like-its. Actually included at one thing here. So we've got view job applications, username equals Rebecca. Okay, fair enough. So we're already leaking some information in the URL. You may have remembered in the view source, it happened to have a content apply directory. Now, after a bit of tweaking and poking, we're going to use this wee tool again. So we've got again our burp, we've got this intruder, and what we're just looking at here is we've already got a feeling that perhaps usernames are being used somewhere in the site for how we're storing content. So obviously we're making a few leaps of assumption here, but what we're just going to do is just show an example of, here we've got fuzz names. It's only a small name set, otherwise we break our server very quickly. So what we're going to do is we know that there is a content apply directory, and funnily enough we're doing job applications. So what we're going to be assuming here, this is the content that perhaps the applications are getting saved up to. So what we're going to do is we're just going to fuzz through and see if we get lucky with names.
So we
Maybe
could
we
have,
will.
We
maybe
could have
not.
found that directory by searching for the word content first, then
Yep.
searching for the word apply, and looking at the different error codes.
Absolutely so.
So
We'll just make things a little quicker here. So exactly the same, but different attack that we had before. So what have we done? So we just ripped through here with a dictionary attack. Now imagine this was 4 million usernames instead. And there seems to be a major issue here that indeed, if we look here, Dwayne, we're getting a 301. So what does that tell us? Again,
tells us the directory exists.
directory exists. And what do we request? We look to see in the apply Dwayne directory. And if we have a look behind the scenes, it's exactly what we've got is that the website's been constructed in such a way that it creates a directory with your username, and then that's where it goes and uploads the files to. So again, quite a simple coding error, one that's very easy to then discover what's inside of those. And if we then enumerate it a little further and we said, well, and again, we're making a few wee assumptions here, but let's just say, as an example, we're going to search for a cv.docx. Now obviously, a real attack we'd put together, we'd use a lot of different file names, we'd start interrogating in different ways, but we're just going to make it nice and easy for ourselves here. And perhaps we'll rerun that same payload looking for docx's. And what we actually see here is that Dwayne, Kenneth and Rebecca each have a CV that we've accessed. So what we've also got is not only that we've used, say, usernames or guessable things, so that what dates being used or customers being used or customer names being used in the name of the PDF that is actually sitting on a server. So here we've got CVs are fully browsable on the internet, whereas of course we should be serving that content back in a different way, shouldn't we? Dope. Okay. So that was that very quick demo. We've got quite a few to go through. So we'll flick back to...
Do we need to bother flicking back? Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do.
Sorry, can we flip back again? Cool. So our next bullet point was we're leaking content to Facebook and the human factor. So in our earlier demo, we showed the like it links being leaked, leaking out URLs of our site to Facebook. And you have to be careful about things like that. So there's a lot of content that you could accidentally include in your pages that will leak the structure of your site out to other servers. So the Facebook one, we were explicitly putting the URL in every iframe to Facebook. But for example, if you embedded images, then the server that served the image to the user gets a referrer header saying which page it came from. If you are serving Google Analytics ads or track Google Analytics or AdWords ads, or you're doing some kind of, I don't know, track people's eyeballs as they look around your website using some kind of ActiveX control, all those things that are hosted off different servers expose the URL of your current site.
Absolutely so.
So
I'll tell you what we'll do. So we do actually have time to roll in another demo about the human factor. So what we'll actually do, can we just flick back again? Sorry, we've got a few of these flick backs. Just because the demo machine is set up for its own crazy environment.
the switchy makes black and white text go.
I know there was a little switch down here that kind of did the stuff, but yeah,
Sorry. We
unfortunately
have to use the human factor.
we back up to this one up here. Okay, so what we're going to do, another thing with the human factor. So what I'm going to do, let me just fire up. Back on here, so if you remember, so we're on Arnie Blunt's email. So we're actually using google.com, as you can see. We're over HTTPS,
Google Apps. Yep.
Google Apps. As you can see, yeah, we've got our SSL cert,
We
SSL.
shouldn't be demoing Google Apps here.
No, we shouldn't be, should we? That's really bad. But how about if we demonstrate like hacking into them? Is that okay?
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's cool. Because and maybe we sort of show nanograms. So what are we going to do here? So we've got Arnie Blunt. We've got Arnie Blunt's password. And what I'm going to do, it's absolutely fine. We've been here before. So when we go, nothing exciting so far. We just log it into Gmail. We've got to log into other. Apparently, there's other online mail servers that could be used as well.
Yeah, some of them are warmer than warm.
Yeah, they're pretty hot. But they still do mail though.
Yeah. Cool.
So, okay, so that was cool. So what do we see? We just logged into Gmail. Absolutely fine.
Who hasn't seen this part before?
All over HTTPS, right?
So, there's actually a Gmail setting to say always do HTTPS, so you should probably set that if you haven't already. But
Now, part of our human errors here, it comes in with this man in the middle that was up on the screen earlier on. So there are man in the middle attacks. What's the point of that? That's where we've managed to get somewhere in between your browser and the server. It could be that we're running some local proxy on your machine. We've taken over a proxy that's in between you and the web server. Maybe it's via the network. But anyway, we are now the bad guy sitting somewhere between you and your browser. Now, we don't need to be worried, do we? Because we are running over HTTPS. And we don't need to worry because we do have our little padlock down the bottom. Life is good as far as this browser is concerned. So if, for instance, before I logged in, I hopped into my proxy here, which is my local proxy, and I turned on Intercept. And I was to log in again as Arnie Blunt. I put in a different password so you don't see it. How about I put in Kirk was. Oh, what will do? Bert's already saying, I'm finding stuff. What's going on?
What?
I don't know.
The audience will never know what I was.
Okay, so we're going to sign in. Off. So what's happened? So our proxy's jumped into the middle. So what we're doing is we're running a local proxy here. Our local proxy is intercepting requests coming from our client, and it's getting them before they hop off to the server. So is there any useful stuff that we've actually got here? Let me see. Email equals Arnie Blunt, and password equals Kirk was.
Oh, W obviously.
Yeah, that's clever, eh?
That's like a button was, yeah. Yeah, cool. So, hang on. How did you manage to intercept SSL?
You know, that doesn't work actually, because SSL is encrypted from client to server. It's point-to-point transport layer. My proxy is sitting in between.
Anybody know?
Any takers? Could have done, but no, not this time.
And there's a job opening for people that can intercept.
Ooh. Self-signed cert. So what we've got, remember, we're looking about the human factor. What actually happened is that before Arnie Blunt came here earlier along, perhaps I'll run this demo in IE, which I can happily say shows things a little more clearly than it does in Firefox. So at the end of the day, this is Arnie Blunt doing it wrong. Mail.
How secure do you need to be?
Google.com.
Seriously?
Bargains.
Feel that product
will
placement.
All become
I should have
very
made my homepage
clear.
6.0.
So this is what Arnie Blunt saw in Firefox weeks ago. It was some kind of a BOF, invalid certificate warning. What does Arnie do as a standard user? Yeah, whatever. Click. If I click no, it doesn't work. If I click yes, it works. Yay!
I need to read my email.
Exactly. So I continue to the website. Now, of course, what Firefox does quite nicely is it says, okay, you've said that you trust it. Do you want to always trust this forevermore? And you go, yep. And what it doesn't do is it doesn't give you this big, dirty, red bar at the top. So in Firefox, what I've actually got down here is I've got two SSL connections at once. One is a fully encrypted SSL connection between me and my man-in-the-middle proxy. The other one is a full valid SSL session from my proxy up to Gmail in this scenario. So we've got two full SSLs. So if somebody wants to man-in-the-middle my man-in-the-middle, no way, because it's completely SSL. So between the client and my man-in-the-middle attacker, can't get hold of it. SSL, perfect. At the other end, as far as Gmail is concerned, it's a perfectly valid conversation. It's just me sitting in the middle with two connections going out both sides. So again, what was the key to this attack? Human error. And often we do see environments, it could be that maybe you've got an issue with certificate authority inside your organisation. Your users are quite used to getting test certs, self-signed certs, accept. This is what happens if you do that. You end up with a browser that says, I'm HTTPS, and it's absolutely not. I'm just sniffing all your traffic on the middle because you're used to accepting invalid certs. So there we go, human error.
The browser does a few checks for you to put up that red bar.
Correct.
So it checks the expiry date of the certificate.
Yep.
To make sure it hasn't passed.
Checks who it's signed by.
Host name of the certificate.
Yes.
Matches the site you're going to.
Yep.
So the Burp proxy generates certificates automatically for each site.
Yep. And that was the self-signed part that we had at the top.
And then the browser checks the certification authority, which is the person that issued the certificate. So if you're in a corporate environment, or maybe you're someone like Dell or Compaq that install default installs, or you're a browser vendor such as Firefox, you can install certification authorities into the Firefox browser or into the IE Trusted Certificate Store, and the users will never know that you control it. And there was actually, I'm pretty sure it was Firefox 6 months ago or something like that, a thread on the forums, who controls this Trusted CA cert? It's been in Firefox since 2001, and they didn't know. You know, those weren't the exact details, but you can see how In a corporate environment, if I was a slightly malicious administrator, I could install my own cert and read the traffic on the way through. So SSL doesn't stop everything.
Absolutely so. Awesome. Flick back.
Cheers.
Thank you. So switch on a seat. He's good.
So our next demo
Perfect.
is embedded and hidden content. So was there anyone who wasn't here for this morning's? Cool. Thanks for coming. So this morning I showed a demo of creating a docx file that was kind of a little bit weird. So what I messed up in the demo was I put a file name wrong in one of those XML files. But here's a valid Word document called mydoc.docx. This is sort of the end result. It opens in Word, it scans in a virus scanner, and it's completely fine. But inside this Word document is some slightly weird stuff. So I just rename it to .zip on the end to show you. Inside is an app manifest.xaml and a couple of DLLs that come from a Silverlight ZAP file, which is also a zip file. And so I've popped them inside the same Word document. I had to do a little bit of tinkering to get that to work. And that was quite laborious, and people in the audience are now juicing beers from that. Cool, and we'll do that after.
Yeah, no.
Or else during the talk, if you want.
Cook's demo costed 4 beers.
Yes, and
Thanks to the audience.
yes, like it wasn't 300. And the other thing I demoed was a text file that had HTML in it, and how that did weird stuff in Internet Explorer. So let's just check that that works first, and I will probably cry if it doesn't. So first I should check I'm logged in as Kirk. Cool, so this website that we're looking at this morning just let people submit their CVs online. And what they could do is log in, browse to either a docx or a text file, and upload it to the server. So I'll do that with both my files. And now they're both sitting in a directory on the server. And then in another browser, Mr. Arnie Blunt comes along, and he goes to the intranet section of the site where he sees a list of all the people that have submitted job applications recently, and he can drill in and see what they said. Like, I want to work with the bargains.com team because I'm awesome. And then he can look at their CVs. So if he clicks on the docx file, it opens up in Word, just as we expect. And there's a slightly strange behavior in Internet Explorer in that when you click on a text file, it can actually run it as HTML if it looks like HTML. So let's look at the source. Print preview. Hey, wow, that prints really well. Let's just look at it on my disk, it's easier. So inside that text file that runs as HTML is actually just a Silverlight object tag, and I stripped out all the craft that you normally have there. And the source parameter that normally points to the Silverlight ZAP file, in this case just points to a docx file, which is that one that I put some DLLs and stuff into. So now when Arne comes along and views that on his website, he actually sees an HTML page. The HTML page runs in his browser. It inserts a Silverlight control. The Silverlight control runs. So, can everyone please cross their toes? It's not a toe. Cool.
Oh, look at that.
So I think did that work before? I don't know. So what happens now is there's a Silverlight control running in someone's browser and they don't know it. So Arne the administrator, thank you, Mr. Photographer. Arne the administrator might be sitting on this text file for a while, and the Silverlight control might be hidden, and it could be talking back to a control server, but commanded by an attacker saying, start calling this site, send me all the content. And that's a perfectly valid thing to do for a Silverlight app. So,
I think he's actually taking photos of you demo, not you.
oh right, he's waiting for it to fail, that's why he keeps clicking. Cool. Okay, so the thing that it would do was it would load all the URLs, which is that top bar there, and then it would start crawling underneath the intranet, looking for content that is normally password protected or authenticated. And so here's an example of that, which is this order status page. And if I just copy that, it's kind of hard to read HTML unless you're more clever than me. weird how the Mac keyboard is around the wrong way. Oh, poor Mac people. I feel so sorry for them and their overpriced laptops. So this is the page that got sent to the server. So it was the raw HTML, so it's not quite as glamorous. But you can see the content of that intranet was downloaded by the Silverlight control running as Arnie, and then Arnie's Silverlight app sent it off to another server. So that was the demo I wanted to do. Cool. So the next step is, how do we stop this from happening? So there's several ways. The first way is don't let people upload stuff to your websites. And
That's
that
a fairly
probably
broad-brushed approach.
probably falls under one of the slightly centralist countermeasures, I think we determined. You could try looking inside zip files or Word documents to see if anything's bad in them, which would be an interesting exercise because I don't know how well that's documented. I don't know what can be embedded in a Word file. You could possibly do that.
But let's face it, the idea of trying to find the bad stuff.
Finding the
That's
bad
always
stuff, I
bad.
guess you could have a whitelist, like we only allow Word files that contain WMF images and JPEGs, nothing else.
Indeed.
Maybe that would be a way of doing it. Or the other way you could do it is to make sure that when content from your site is served, it doesn't serve inside the browser window. And so the way you do that is by adding a header in IIS. And the header is called x-content-type-options, which is just a regular kind of made-up header. It's not regular at all. Headers are just strings. You can put whatever you want in them, but you put the value no snuff. So if you search for MIME type sniffing IIS, this will pop up in your search engine of choice. And what this header says is the web server says, don't sniff any HTML content out of text files or any other files on my server. So that's our first step to stop the text file running as HTML. And as I alluded to earlier, this morning, that was a kind of compatibility feature that Microsoft added in IE, because in the old days, people just used to put files on their web server with the wrong file extensions and wrong MIME types. But if you control your server and you know that all text files should be text, you can safely turn this option on. So now when I go to my content and finally manage to force a refresh, it does no longer run as HTML, it just shows text content. But this is still not quite good enough. It's still running inside the browser window, and there's other exploits that could potentially happen when content runs in the context of the browser. So the other thing that you could consider doing is, instead of directly linking to content, serving it up through a handler. So a handler is basically just a URL on your website where you pass a parameter in that says get me the file with this name or this ID. You go grab the file from another part of your file system or your database and you serve it back to the user. So that's good practice anyway. Our demo didn't do it, but it should have. And then your handler should emit a content disposition header. And this content disposition header tells the browser, always pop up an open or save dialog. So never let it load in the browser. And the syntax there is all in one line, content disposition attachment, and then what the file name should show as in the browser window. So you should do those two things, and that'll kind of protect you from those two particular attacks. It doesn't protect you from people putting other random stuff inside files. So we showed an example where you can concatenate a zip file with a GIF file and store bomb recipes on a server. So you'll have to think of other ways of doing that. I was talking to Alan from TradeMe about how they do it, and I think he was saying that they don't display any of the raw images that people upload. And I think this is something that Flickr and other sites do. They always process everything through an image library and only serve the outputs of that to end users. So that way you've kind of taken an image in, turned it into a bitmap, turned it back into an image and served that up. New technologies. Cool. I thought for a sec.
Yeah.
I like talking.
Oh,
So new technologies are bad. You should never choose new technologies. If someone in your organization wants to use Silverlight, Windows Server 2008, .NET 4, ASP.NET MVC, or whatever's in the next session, you should say no
No.
as your first response.
Absolutely not.
That is what a Labour/National, they're the same, government would do. But if you're out on the fringes, you might think that it's time to choose one of these new technologies. And it's not like Silverlight is actually bad here.
Not
Silverlight actually follows a more strict security model than Java Applets or Flash does, but it still has the same kind of properties
Absolutely.
as those. Is that a segue into you?
That's good. No, that makes perfect sense. So on that note, can we just flick to the other screen again, please? Mr. EVM switch over at the side of the room. So what we're going to run through. So again, I've got a Silverlight application up here, or just a little Silverlight control, in fact. And so what I fancy is that Kirk has obviously gone through and he's got his little file upload bit of functionality. Now, of course, the marketing team hit this site after we developed it securely. They said we want these Facebook like it links, we want the company on Facebook itself, we want some Silverlight controls in there as well, just to make things look more sexy and rich to the end user. So what have we got here? So the first thing we did as a dev is we said, hey look, can we just have a quick look at...
How do you read these things? Does that say button? Which one's the big hand?
That's the big 333.
Oh, okay, cool. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah, cool.
It's got like 6 hands on it.
Now, maybe later on for the technical question to win the prize might be, who can read a watch? And Kirk's not winning it.
Sorry. Continue.
You just can't get the help, can you? So what do we do? So we went to search for Silverlight file uploads, and we went to number 1 on the list, and this was the same whether we Binged it or Googled it. Then our Silverlight upload from Codeplex.com was the puppy for us. And if we dive into there, what we'll find is that about 17,000 other people thought that this was the best one. 17,598, in fact, thought that this would probably be the best file upload that they would want to plug into their applications. So, there's 17,598 people who should be worried about this.
And why is that, Andy?
Well, so what happens in the Silverlight application? So the core is, it's running in your client. That is the core to our issue. I'm sure as we run through the demo, you'll be able to see where the problems lie. So what are we going to do? And again, we haven't touched this at all. All we've done, we've got the Silverlight, and if you go and download this particular control, it's got the project itself, it's got the test project, and you just roll it together, and it works beautifully. So this is untouched. There's possibly 17,598 versions of this sitting out there. So what are we going to do? Let's jump to our images directory somewhere. So we're in fact uploading docx's before, but one of the great things with this, so one of the great things with this great control is it actually gives us some rich UI functionality with images. So imagine we wanted to upload our army image. I don't know why we would want to. So what we could do is we could actually display some thumbnails.
Looks good to me. I don't know what the problem is.
No, I think we'll take that off again. So that's cool. So what does it do? So it actually gives us a bit more rich functionality than we would normally get in a file upload. This is why we're doing it in Silverlight. It looks nice. Now, going back to select here though, what it does is this is built to only let us select images. That's all. So if this was Kirk's example, in fact, this would be locked down to only let us upload text and docx files, nothing else. Fair enough. And if we happen to upload one of these files, then it's got a groovy little progress uploader, as you would expect any lovely little Silverlight control to do. Poof! So it looks far nicer than our standard file uploader. Love it. So that's what comes out of the box. Now, of course, what we might want to do is bypass the validation this is doing. What we would much rather do is upload anything to the server, files of our own choosing. So what might we want to do? Anyone got any clues about how we might want to attack this little Silverlight control? You know, do we have to rebuild it? Do we have to... Any clues? Could do. Zipped up GIF idea. Exactly so. So what have we got? If we go and trap the request coming through, so we use our little intercept again, one of our little local proxies.
So just to jump in here, so one of the things about Silverlight is that, and other technologies, is you kind of don't see what's going on under the scenes. So if you're evaluating out like a Silverlight application, we should probably use something like a proxy just to see what's actually going over the wire.
Absolutely. Pretty valuable. So what we're going to do, we're going to intercept, we're going to refresh this page off. So it comes in here and says, what are we doing? Okay, so we're going to go and get this Silverlight file upload, and let's have a look at what comes back from the server. Lovely jibbly. So without going into too much detail, as you would have seen, the Silverlight object is going to be embedded on our page in the middle of this gubbins here. Now the middle of this gubbins, it actually contains, in this real live control, the file filter. So how about we just replace star.gef with a star.star, wildcard it, as the suggestion was down here.
So the server is saying, here's a Silverlight control, only let people browse GIF files?
Absolutely so. So basically,
let them browse all files. Okay,
correct.
That's cool. That's still on the client side.
All on the client side. So what happened is that when we, in fact you can see it already on this page, when we went and requested the Silverlight object from the server, part of its parameters that are sent back to the client are the files it's allowed to see. So that's what we intercepted. With our burp, we came through, we intercepted the request coming back. So what we can now see is we can go and select any file type, not just GIFs and JPEGs. So for instance, we might want to come over here and do the good old attack we did last year, evilhacker.aspx. So how about we'll let it upload that file? What does that think?
That is a very nice file upload though, isn't it?
It's a very nice file upload. It doesn't actually display a thumbnail of Evil Hacker. No, I won't even try, it might just break. Okay. So
it would be terrible if one of your demos break. That would make me feel sad.
Yeah. No, I'm not. Get off. I'm not clicking that link. So what have we done? So again, the server side is not doing any further validation at all. It's leaving the Silverlight to be rich and smart enough to only select valid file types. Well, it's gone and uploaded Evil Hacker ASPX, and of course, being a good project, it puts them all in an upload directory. And of course, out of the box, this project, we stick it on IIS 7, and of course it's just got standard permissions in the IIS directory, which lets us run the ASPX file ourselves. And so what have we now done as the ASPX file? So again, we just used three little examples. So what has it done? So this file did not exist until I uploaded it. So our upload has just put evilhacker.aspx in my upload directory, which happens to have executable permission, so I can now run my arbitrary code on your back-end web server. So again, all I just do here as a quick example is just look through all of the server variables. I then go hunting for web config files because they may contain something juicy. And after we finish that, we just do a full directory listing of the web directory that we're in. And these are just examples of stuff we could do. Instead, we could be copying around different files. We could have chosen to upload a different Silverlight Zap file. We could have chosen to modify some of the Silverlight under the themes and then attack someone else. I guess once you've started to let someone upload ASPX files to your web server, then it's the realm of what you can do at the back end. It's your choice.
So it's not the Silverlight control's fault there. Silverlight is just an enabler for
Absolutely so.
a web server that's kind of dumb that accepts any files that it's given.
Absolutely so. And so the key issue being, because it is a client-based control, that's where it does all of its validation. There's nothing at the back end that lets you also say, I've only got a GIF and a JPEG. Or a text or docx.
So the good thing about things like this, you go searching on the internet and you find some random code, is at least this one you can look at the source code and evaluate it without,
Absolutely.
without,
Absolutely. But just, I guess it's user beware.
Binary only. So
Definitely.
you should consider doing that for anything that you download, especially where it involves transferring data to or from the server.
Awesome. Okay, well what I'll do is, without flicking back to the other screen, the next one that we were going to run through is just a bit of a recap of something that we went through this morning, the tab napping. So no, we'll stay on this one, because on Kirk's screen it's just going to say, the next thing we ran through this morning was phishing, social engineering, and tab napping. Now, I know we all saw it, but I was just going to run through again how the tab napping was put together, just so you understand how that was working behind the scenes. So we all saw this morning from, well, we didn't all see, those people who were here saw. So there'll be so hands up again. So who wasn't here this morning? Oh, there you go. So we've got a couple of fresh faces. So what we've got here, right? One of the users we're logging into, and so for those who were here this morning, I'm not going to go over it in too much detail. We first of all logged in, so we've got there's a marketing fella who happens to be an admin on our website. Arnie Blunt, and this is Arnie Blunt's email account. Now, one of the things that Arnie would normally have done is he would be logged into Facebook.com. He would normally have a number of other...
It's obviously the first thing that a marketing person does when they get to work. Log into Facebook, check
or
their
a bunch of
Twitter.
other...
It's, I mean, actually sometimes I feel like that. Like the last thing I do is check my work email after I get to work. It's like, do everything else that's fun and then...
Cool. No, what, out of interest, this is what normally comes up. So, of course, I'm still running through my proxy at this point. So here we're seeing some of the issues that come through with untrusted certificates. So what have we got? So again, if we come back here, the email that we had in question said, there's a security flaw in your web app. So this was a phishing email sent to Arnie directly. And you should go and check it out at Page of Words, which Arnie did. Now, Page of Words popped up. Now, this happens to be...
So hang on. So one thing about that was the link that I saw, the link that Arnie saw, I'm not Arnie, the link that Arnie saw and clicked on looked different than the one he went to.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of a traditional phishing attack.
Absolutely. So, if you go and click on pageofwords.com and it comes up with bad.facebook.com/tabnapping, that might be a clue. In this scenario, Arnie doesn't actually go and look at the URLs, or in fact, of course, you can go through and if you want to, just turn off your address toolbar and navigation toolbar, and then you don't know where you're going at all.
Or the other common scenario that Bevan pointed out was oftentimes when you're reading your email, you'll middle click or right click to open a new tab. Like, you know, I'm going to read this later, read this later, read this later. And then you slowly work your way through the tabs, or you end up in a tab deficit, such as me, where once it gets to about 150, Firefox crashes and you start again from zero.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or again, what you often see people doing is perhaps they don't have the navigation or the address bar up at all. Homepage might be Bing or Google, and even if they're after a web address, they'll actually type it into the search, www.zero.com. Up it comes in the search, and they use that, so they never actually touch the address bar themselves. Now, if you're doing that, nightmare scenario, because you don't know the address of the actual websites you're surfing. So what we've got here is, again, so our attack actually clicked through while we weren't looking. So what I'm going to do, minimise that down. Let me just come through. So I went to Page of Words. Now, again, you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, it does actually look at a different URL. So that's fair enough. So if we were smart, we would have seen straight away that something dodgy is going on. Now the other bit, so the bit of tab nabbing, and I'll show you the code behind this in a second, is that it's assuming that we've got lots of these tabs open and that we're not keeping our eye on what's doing what. And so all it's doing is that as we move away, our page redirects to our target. And what we're trying to do here is we're trying to steal Arnie's credentials. And that's quite funky. It's actually coming up with that's pretty. So, what we're going to do here...
Facebook would be better if my face was next to every page.
Yeah, well, in fact, if you're so I guess perhaps if you go to log into Facebook and Kirk's face is right up to your login, possibly something that might highlight some major alarm bells. So what do we do here? So again, as Arnie, we haven't noticed this little face here. Just something weird with our screen res. And instead what happens is that we've gone to log in, and of course we've intercepted the password on the way through. So I typed in Arnie Blunt and password 123. And the example here is, so Facebook just says, sorry, your account is temporarily unavailable. So that's what we ran through this morning. So what was happening underneath? Basically what happened is that our first tab nabbing page simply contained one line of JavaScript. And the JavaScript was to include this source. And all this is doing behind the scenes is waiting for the window, for us to move away from the window. And here it happens to be a 5-second delay.
So that's
but that could be
window.onBlur.
Correct.
Function. Yep.
Absolutely. Window on blur. So either we tab away or we move actually away from the whole browser window itself. And it sets the timer. It could be 1, 10. This happens to be a 5-second wait. And all it will do is then just has 3 little bits it will try and change. It will try and set the title of your window to our attack target. Tries to update the favourite icon, if we can. Some browsers like this, some browsers don't. And then we actually put what's called the shield, which is basically a mix of either a div or an iframe with our attack site that's just put up over your page. So the idea is that the victims page is sitting underneath, we're just putting up our attack page over the top. And it's from there that we then harvest the credentials, and we then go and attack the page underneath from there.
So this kind of attack's particularly nasty because users are really used to getting their password wrong the first time they try. So if we give them a response back that says your password was wrong, or your session's timed out, or your account is disabled, they're used to that kind of behavior, and probably 80% of the time they will be putting the correct password in the first time. So poor old users.
Exactly. So in essence, as I showed this morning, there is a variation on a theme where we can actually use a live login version. And all the live login does is a variation on a theme, and behind the scenes it actually posts our trapped usernames and passwords to the target site and auto logs us in. Now there's a couple of ways you can pick up on this. So for instance, a lot of sites will actually use the referrer itself. So for instance, if you are on a form that's login.aspx and you've just been posted a username and password from dodgyhacker.com, you can be fairly sure it's not valid data. So a common technique is just to check the referrer. Now of course the referrer can be duped, but it's quite hard to do in your victim's browser. There's other techniques of putting unique keys or unique one-time GUIDs in the requests, but it is a defense that you have to be careful of. If you're just allowing content posted from any site on the internet straight to, for instance, your login page, then you'll be allowing people to tab-nab or to harvest credentials for your website.
So the thing there is that the tab-nabbing is the first step, and then the posting the credentials on is the second step to make it look all okay to the user. And that class of attacks where you make a fake form and post it on is called cross-site request forgery or cross-domain request forgery. And so we're not going to cover that in too much depth today, but there's a bunch of standard ways of protecting yourself against that. So if you're on ASP.NET web forms, then you want to look at the viewState user MAC key, or the viewState user key. And if you're on MVC, then look for the CSRF or the CDRF token. Which one is it? I don't remember. I think it's CSRF token. Which is basically, both of those solutions mean that every time a post comes into the server, it's specific to the user that got the page in the first place. But the class of attacks that it doesn't protect against is if this site is actually proxying the data back to Facebook. So if this site is collecting the login page and then its server is logging into Facebook and returning the person's wall, then the user has no way of knowing that that's happening.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so we've actually come up to the end of our demo and run-through session. Can we flick back to our main screen, please?
Cool. Okay, do we have time to go through some more stuff?
Not really, if we want to get the prize out.
I'm
We've got to do the wrap-up and prize draw.
Okay, so cross-site scripting and cross-solution request, whatever that's called, you should be able to find lots of information about that.
In fact, if anyone's interested in those, so we can have a chat at the end and we'll be around for the rest of TechEd. So if there's any of the attacks that we didn't cover last year that anyone is desperately interested in, we can have a chat about those.
I just want to do a 5-second about cross-site scripting.
Yeah.
So ASP.NET 4, which of course we're all early adopters of because we're all awesome, includes new syntax to protect us against cross-site scripting. And the new syntax is angle brackets %, and you can use this in web forms or MVC. And the way that Scott Hanselman refers to it is, think of it as angle brackets % equals, but the equals is turned sideways. It looks like 2 dots. So anyway, what that does is any data that's in between there, instead of going raw onto the site, instead of going raw out on the page to the user, well, that was a bit fumbled. Instead of going raw, it gets encoded first. And there's also some smart stuff in there so that stuff doesn't get encoded twice. So there's a new type which actually keeps track of whether it's been encoded or not. So if you're building new apps, definitely use this right from the start. And then one of your code review steps, one of your blame pointing steps after there's a problem would be to search through the code for any angle brackets percent equals and look at those ones in particular, because when you're doing percent equals, the onus is on you to encode the data, so they're the things you should focus on. So that's a really cool feature. I'm glad we've got that now. And the other thing I wanted to say was just about cross-site scripting. It was about SQL injection. Most sites these days don't really have problems with SQL injection if they're using newer frameworks like Lightspeed or Link to SQL or Link to Entities or LLVLGen or anything else that builds an object model in front of your database. Even if you're using ADO.NET, you can still protect yourself from SQL injection by using parameterized queries. The thing you should watch out for is the plus sign anywhere to do with your data code, because that means that you're just joining strings together. It's very dangerous.
And one of the common defences that people say is that they just use stored procs throughout the application. So if you're not using something like Link to SQL, you may actually have, say in your search, an actual custom stored procedure for the search, for instance. And often people say you cannot SQL inject a stored procedure because everything is parameterized. So again, for the demo that we put together for this session last year, we do actually have how you SQL inject, or a SQL injectable stored proc. So often people will argue and say, can't be done. So there is a way. If you write your stored proc badly enough, absolutely. So if anyone's interested afterwards or at some time over the thing, we have a fully SQL injectable stored procedure, which many people don't believe exists, but we can see it in action.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically if someone does something stupid, then something stupid will happen. So in that case, it was me. Cool.
It's quite good. You're the only one I know who actually created a SQL injectable stored proc. It was quite a...
Oh, no.
It was amazing.
It's easy.
Oh, okay.
I've seen them plenty of times.
Thanks. You have?
Cool. So there's two cool security sessions on next, which is a bummer because they're both at the same time. Over in NZ1 room, there's a go-ahead break my AD session. So Active Directory underlies a lot of enterprise security, and there's some cool techniques in there to keep it safe. Don't leave, we're not finished. We're doing this early, so you don't leave. And then in this room, there's a session I think Rocky's taking, which is on security in the cloud, so systems like Azure. Now, we said we were going to give away a prize. And it was
Of
going to be
huge value.
Of huge value.
This is a MSDN Ultimate. So it's actually Microsoft Visual Studio 2010 Ultimate with MSDN. Valued at $11,899 US, or we were told earlier on today, 25k in New Zealand.
Has anyone bought that for 25k?
Anyone?
I wonder how many they sell.
Anyway, I don't know. But crikey.
That's a lot of money.
Anyone want one of these? Oh,
Yes,
you've got a couple
that
of
was
takes.
a skill question.
Hey, yeah, that was it. There you go. Okay, now the skill question. Skill question. So the skill question needs to be...
We have to make them do something.
Oh, we do, don't we? Yeah. Okay.
So,
So there has to be a forfeit as you answer the question.
maybe you hold it and they have to chase you, and the first person... The first
Why are they
person
chasing
to
me?
tab nab you or poke you.
Yeah, I'm on.
Okay, we have
Quick!
to think of a question.
Bloody hell. Keenany.
Okay, the first person to come up and tab nab Andy and yell out the header for IIS that makes things pop up as attachments gets the prize. Starts with X dash. You better run. You got to touch him. You can touch him anywhere you want.
Oh, man, down!
Next content
Hey, no.
Next content options off.
Hang on, I'll bring it up on the screen.
Oh, hang
What
on.
did what did he say?
He said,
X content type option off. X dash content type dash options. No sniff.
all right, hang on. Tear it in half, please. No.
Okay, so that answer was about that header, right? That was popping up as an attachment.
Yes.
The MIME type sniffing. So that was the one that the attachment handler poked out. So Andy, get ready.
Uh-oh, because that's not the right answer you're after.
That's not the right answer.
Oh, crap.
But I thought it was great how you guys tried really hard to do that.
Oh, man, that was a bit scary. So what are you after then?
Okay, I'll make an
Don't
easier
make me
question.
do that again.
The first person to touch Andy and say the worst department in the org with regard to security.
Look at that! Bloody hell! Marketing!
Cool.
Oh, that was a
Okay.
great dive, mate. You get it for that. Well done.
Okay, so that was the prize. Well done to all those people.
Universal. Universal.
That's the end.
That brings us
And
to
he
the end
broke
of
2
my
ribs.
days.
No!
Bye bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for coming.